We've all done bad things in our lives, haven't we? Whether it be when we were children, teenagers, or adults. We all do bad things at least once. More often it happens when we are children and don't know right from wrong. Or or for others it may happen more when you're a teenager and trying to rebel from your parents. It may even happen more as we are adults because we are seeking personal gain and revenge. As a child, I was very mischievous, but am no longer like that today. I am going to tell you a story about something I did that was very wrong. First, I will tell you how I became fascinated with an object. Second, I will tell you how I could not resist to steal this object. And finally, I will tell you the consequences for my actions. It was an ordinary day in my life as a 5-year-old when, little did I know, I was soon to be enthralled with an object I had always wanted. I was inside my house, looking for things to do, when I heard all the neighborhood kids outside cheering excitedly, and it sounded like they were having fun. Curious as to what it was, I went outside and saw all the neighborhood kids crowded in a circle at my neighbor Austin's house. I walked closer and saw that he had gotten a new bike and was letting everybody take turns riding it. The bike looked amazing from the distance. It had my favorite color of blue paint all over the body of the bike, and it even had a bell on the handlebars, which I had always wanted when I was little. My mother went with me to go look at Austin's new bike, and to chat with his mother, since they were friends. When I joined the circle surrounding the bike, the kids would just tell me how cool the bike was and how awesome it looked. That was something I knew far too much already. I stood there ecstatically, waiting my turn, and then the moment finally came. During and after that moment, I was going to find out if I could resist to steal the bike of my dreams. I stepped onto the beautiful bike and felt as if I was on the clouds riding it. My mother saw me riding the bike and said, "Hey, you ride that bike pretty good." About a minute or two later, Austin's mother said that my time was up and that it was somebody else's turn to ride. I oh so dearly did not want this moment to end. Everything was just so perfect, and I couldn't stop. I then heard my mother say, "Nicole, your time's up. You need to get off." With frustration building up inside me, I rebelled and said no, and took off with the bike down the block. Immediately, Austin and his mother took off chasing after me, along with my mother. I rode around along the huge block, and it looked as if there was an angry mob forming behind me. They were about a minute or a minute and a half behind me when I thought, if I keep riding this bike as fast as I can, I'm going to get tired, and they're going to catch up to me eventually. So I thought of a plan very quickly. I rode the bike to the nearest house and knocked on the door. A man answered and asked if he could help me. Knowing he was a complete stranger, I lied and said that I was a friend of his daughter and asked if she was home. He said yes and let me in and showed me to where she was watching TV inside on the floor. She seemed unaware of anything that was going on around her as I lay down next to her. Coming out of her daze, she turned and looked at me and asked who I was. I told her that I was hiding from my parents, and seeming not to be bothered by a stranger, she said, "Okay." After a few seconds, I realized that my parents were going to find the bike outside the house and know where it was. So I told my new friend that I had to go and took off right back onto the bike down the block. As I was riding as fast as I could, the mob behind me started to shrink, until finally my mother was left chasing me. As I predicted, I got tired riding the bike, and I decided to use my last burst of energy to make a run for it. I did not make very good decisions that day, and was going to find the consequences for my actions. As I was running, I knew that I couldn't go on forever, and I knew eventually I was going to have to go home. So I decided to own up to the consequences for my actions and just go home. I waited for my mother to catch up with me, and she did. When she found me, the first thing she did was yell at me for everything I had done, and I ended up feeling really bad. There is a recommendation on Alumbo.com that suggests if your child stole from outside the family, you should make them return the object and apologize, which my mother did. She gave me a well-deserved spanking and made me take the bike back to Austin and apologize. In every situation, we have the ability to make a good or bad decision. In my story that I have just told, I was presented with an object that I had always wanted, could not resist the temptation to steal it, and suffered the consequences. As written by an author on AACAP.org, they say that it is normal for a child to steal something that excites his or her interests. Temptation is something that we are all going to have to deal with at one time in our lives or another, but it is up to us to make the right decision. Temptation has been the cause of divorces, jail time, and even addiction. Do not let temptation take over your life, and know that good decisions do not hold bad consequences.